There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from being surrounded by people who would help you if only you would ask. But you don't ask. You've never really learned how. And somewhere deep in the architecture of who you've become, asking feels more dangerous than struggling alone. You've built a life around the quiet belief that you can handle anything, that needing someone is a weakness you cannot afford. And maybe you're right. Maybe you've had to be.
When was the last time you reached out, before the crisis became unbearable? Not after you'd exhausted every option, not when the walls were already closing in, but early, when help could have actually made a difference. If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. There are millions of us walking through the world carrying burdens we were never meant to carry alone, convinced that this is simply what strength looks like. Psychologists have a term for this: compulsive self-reliance. It sounds clinical, detached, but it describes something deeply human. It's the learned belief that dependence equals danger, that asking for help opens a door you may never be able to close again. It's not stubbornness, though it often gets mistaken for that. It's a survival strategy that once kept you safe, but now keeps you isolated. The origins are rarely mysterious. Perhaps you were the oldest child in a struggling household, learning early that your needs came last. Perhaps you asked for help once and were met with irritation, or worse, indifference. Perhaps the people who were supposed to protect you used your vulnerability against you, turned your softness into a weapon. Children are brilliant observers. They learn quickly which behaviors keep them safe, and they carry those lessons into adulthood long after the original danger has passed. So you became the reliable one, the person others lean on, the one who always has it together, who never complains, who solves problems rather than creating them. And there's a bitter comfort in that identity. It feels like control. It feels like strength. But beneath it runs a current of exhaustion that never quite recedes.
The paradox is this: the more capable you become at managing everything alone, the more alone you actually are. Because people can only meet you where you let them. When you perform invulnerability, when you answer "I'm fine" reflexively, when you change the subject the moment the conversation veers toward your struggles, you train the people around you to believe you don't need them. And then you resent them for not seeing through the performance. You resent them for taking you at your word. But here's what most people don't understand about refusing help. It's not always about pride. Sometimes it's about protection. Not just protecting yourself from disappointment, but protecting others from the weight of who you really are. There's a script that plays in your mind when someone offers assistance. They're just being polite. They don't really want to deal with this. I'll become a burden. They'll regret getting involved. And maybe sometimes those fears are justified, but more often they're echoes of older wounds, ghosts of times when vulnerability did equal danger. Trust is built in small moments, psychologists tell us. It's constructed through repeated experiences of showing up and being met, of reaching out and being held. But if your early experiences taught you that trust is a trap, that the people who promise safety are the ones who hurt you most, then every act of independence becomes a small rebellion against that original betrayal. You'll handle it yourself because you're the only one who's never let you down. The irony is that this strategy works until it doesn't. You can white-knuckle your way through an extraordinary amount of difficulty. You can solve problems, manage crises, carry grief, all while maintaining the appearance of someone who has it together. But there are kinds of pain that cannot be resolved through competence. There are losses that demand to be witnessed, fears that grow larger in isolation, exhaustions that accumulate until your body simply stops cooperating with your determination to manage everything alone. And when you finally do break, when the facade crumbles, It often happens catastrophically, because you've been holding so much for so long that there's no graceful way to set it down. The people around you were shocked because they had no idea. They thought you were fine. You told them you were fine. And now they're hurt that you didn't trust them, and you're overwhelmed by their hurt on top of everything else you're carrying. And the whole experience confirms what you already believed. Asking for help creates more problems than it solves. But what if the question isn't whether you can handle things alone? You've already proven you can. You've spent your whole life proving it. What if the question is, what does it cost you to never stop proving it? What relationships have remained surface level because you won't let anyone pass the wall? What dreams have you abandoned because you couldn't do them alone and wouldn't ask for support? What version of yourself exists on the other side of the belief that needing people makes you weak? There's a kind of poverty that has nothing to do with money. It's the poverty of reciprocity, of mutual dependence, of being held in a web of relationships where help flows both ways. When you only ever give and never receive, when you position yourself as the helper but never the helped, you rob the people around you of the opportunity to love you completely. You let them know your strength but never your struggle. You give them your solutions but never your uncertainty. And relationships built on only half of who you are can only ever be half as deep. The most radical thing you might ever do is not to become more independent, but to become more honest about your dependence. To recognize that the choice was never between isolation and burden, that there's a third way, a space between handling everything alone and collapsing into helplessness. It's the space where you're allowed to be human, to have limits, to say, "I'm struggling," without it erasing all the strength you've demonstrated. It's the space where asking for help is not the end of your self-reliance, but the beginning of something more sustainable. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to ask for help when every instinct screams against it. Trust can't be rushed, and healing doesn't happen on a timeline. But maybe it means noticing the script when it plays, noticing the assumption that asking equals weakness, that needing equals danger. And maybe, with the right person in the right moment, testing whether that assumption is still true. Not because you can't handle it alone, because you shouldn't always have to. Because the real measure of strength isn't how much you can carry by yourself. It's knowing when you're strong enough to let someone else share the weight.